Hi guys, so I have 12 more books to talk about that I read during July. I did do a first part where I discussed the first 5 books, I believe. I should have held off a little bit longer and decide to make it more of an even split, but I wasn't intending to read the final couple of books or as much in general in the latter half of the month. So I'm very happy with all of the reading I've been doing and how much I've been soaking in. So I do have, as I've mentioned briefly, a little side project going on where I'm reading for like a panel, and that has been vlogged. It's coming up to the date where we discuss these books now, so I will share that vlog with all the actual like reviews and thoughts and feelings later on when things are announced. So one of those books, which I'll just skim over, is volume 3 of the Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyons, which was by Beth Browler, and I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. It's a historical slice of life, I guess you could say, following our main character Emma, who is a lady in society who's kind of just getting by. She is the landlord to the tenant that lives like in a different wing, sort of different part of the house, and there's definitely a will they won't they there. She has her insufferable cousin Archibald living with her, and they have this like nemesis relationship. He is absolutely infuriating, but some of the scenes together is so funny. She has an awful aunt that is very much trying to kind of play her against the aunt's daughter and be like, oh, see how beautiful she is, I need you to be there so that people can be captivated by her and offer her proposals of marriage, and then you can just be like chucked to the side, right? It's really fun. And actually reading this for the project that I'm reading it for, I was worried that I wasn't gonna enjoy it as much because it is a random 3rd book in a series and I hadn't read any of the others. I didn't need to be concerned because I had a great time. I will talk a bit more about that at a later date. That, I went back onto Tor short stories. I completely forgot how much free content they have on their website, and this was like a short horror story called The Auntie by Alyssa Wong, and it was illustrated by Wendy Zhu, and I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. It's a very short kind of like graphic novel short story. That was another thing. I didn't know that they had graphic novel short story free content on the website as well. Last time I was like actively reading stories on there, it was just like traditional print, you know, fiction. But yeah, this was really fun, really wholesome. I won't give too much of the plot away because it is only like a few pages, but I really loved the spin that we had on this kind of classic, you know, type of ghost story. It was endearing and oddly realistic, and yeah, I really liked the art style as well. It kind of all came together fantastically, so I would definitely recommend that if you want just a nice, small, easy, spooky story. Another book that I read for the project that I won't go too much into depth about is Thorns in the Hollow by Laura Purcell, and this was my first book by this author, but I have been wanting to check out her like back catalogue for the longest time. She always comes up in the Essex book festival stuff because I think she's kind of local to Essex, which is really cool. So I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. It's historical fantasy. I would say there are some very major fantasy elements, but at the heart it does feel very much more like a historical with like magical attributes to it, magical realism. So we're following Tabitha, who is to marry her cousin and heir to the Reynolds Hollow in order to stay in her ancestral home, despite being in love with her childhood friend and stable hand Kit. But when Vincent dies in a hunting accident, her future is lost, and more secrets become unbound and unearthed as the story goes on, and it always seems to tie back into the mysteries, intrigue and uncertainty around this circus that happened in this woods like 20 years ago, and sort of unresolved things that came from that. I forgot I had some quotes. I keep forgetting to do this. So for the Emma Lyons Unselected Journals, I will read you the top one here because some of them were just so funny. Like, oh my god, the way I was chuckling at some of this, I feel like I'm bigging it up a bit too much now. I suppose when one has a peg leg and an eye patch, one might scowl, justifiably so. However, his auburn hair made it difficult to take an expression with any degree of seriousness. Be a pirate if you must, but do not try to do it as a ginger. It just makes me chuckle. And then for Thorns in the Hollow, I have a couple of quotes for this as well. If grief made Tabitha childlike, it had aged Horatio, snuffed out something behind his eyes. God, 2 very contrasting quotes there. Next up, I read volume 4 of The Ice Guy and the Cool Girl by Miyuki Tonagaya, and I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. This is the last of the volumes that I'm able to digitally borrow from the library, so I do think I'll be switching to the anime, and I know I've been saying that since I started this series, but oh, it's so cute. This is like an office romance. We're following the modern day snow spirit Himuro and his cool, self-assured colleague Fuyutsuki, who decide to dress up together for the office's Halloween costume contest. Then, just when it seems like Fuyutsuki will never notice her own feelings for Himuro, a shopping trip with his younger sister acts as the trigger for her to finally have a realization. What will she do now that she knows that she sees Himuro as more than just a colleague? This was so sweet, honestly. I had such a good time reading this. Our main character finally getting close to each other and both becoming more aware of their feelings was so endearing. I loved Himuro's attempt at getting a cat roommate as well. That whole arc was quite amusing. Fuyutsuki always had the cutest earrings. She's such a fashionable lady. I loved the chapter which was kind of around the New Year festival, and yeah, overall I thought it was a really fun volume for sure, and I can't wait to see how it has been like adapted into an anime. I would love to finish off reading them properly, but I don't want to like start buying them randomly in the middle of a series because I know I'm not going to buy the first
After
four,
that,
I read a children's non-fiction. This was Tales of Scary Beasts by Susan Martineau. I actually read this before The Ice Guy, so I managed to finish this one beforehand, and I think the book after this that I'm going to talk about I also read before The Ice Guy, but that's neither here nor there. So this is about cryptids and stories surrounding mysterious beasts. It asks the reader to consider the facts, study the illustrations, and figure out what really might have been seen by the people that made these accounts. So I really loved that it aims to engage younger readers into a more critical thinking approach when it comes to the strange and wonderful and bizarre, and it displays the information in a logical way that gives the readers the invitation to explore more on their own. It does take a little bit of the magic out of these like cryptid sightings, but I loved that it does push you to think for yourself while still being intrigued by the unknown. I have a read with me filmed for this one, so definitely keep an eye out for this if you are interested. This one I gave a 3.5 stars. So another book that I read for the project that I'm working on, oh let me just switch to this hand, I've got more space over here, is The Cracks by T.H. Huddleston. So I won't go into depth about this one and I will stop like flinging it around because it's got kind of a glare to this. This one I gave a 3 out of 5 stars, and it is what's simply described as a punk rock love letter to gothic horror about class grief and the ghosts of the past. We're following Sandra, who is invited by an old university friend that's very well off to come and stay with him and his wife whilst they do up their stately home, to kind of move through the motions of grief after she's just laid her husband to rest. She is swarmed in debt, her house is being repossessed, and she just kind of needs a place to clear her head for a little bit. Well, she intends it to be a little bit, a couple of weeks at the most, but the weeks turn into months and time goes on and she's finding that the house is sinking its claws into her and she may not be able to escape. So yeah, I have got quite a few quotes for this one as well, but other than that I'll probably leave the thoughts and feelings for the blog that I mentioned briefly. On page 90 there's this eerie quote. She felt movement beside her and turned, shoving as hard as she could, but there was nothing there, just those tightening obstacles moving in to trap her. I did a little bit of immersive reading for this next book. This is Bearmouth by Liz Hyder, and I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I had read the what was it called? I really loved it and now I can't remember the name of the book, but I only read it like the month prior or the month before that. Let me quickly find out. Of course it was in my other book, so I was never going to find it flicking through this. I had The Island in my head, but it's called The 12. It just popped into my head. I read that a couple of months ago and really enjoyed it, so I was a little bit of a kick trying to see what else was easily accessible from this author to read, and I really enjoyed this one. It's kind of like dystopian, not so distant future dystopian, more like it almost feels like it's going back, well, which I guess is dystopian in that vibe, like things are broken, right, and it feels fundamentally behind in terms of where society should be. But anyway, life in Bearmouth is one of hard labour and isolation. The unlit world far above the mine is a distant memory for many. Newt has lived in the mine since the age of 4 and accepts everything from the harsh working conditions to the brutality of the mine's leaders until the mysterious Devlin arrives. He dares to ask the question, why? Newt begins to challenge the system and sets in motion a change of events that could destroy their entire world. The audio sounded fantastic, almost like it was adding more to the story, like quite literally. I felt like when I was following along with the book, some things were added in that weren't in the book, but it was more of an immersive experience, and I felt like the narration was fantastic. Like the voice actor that we had for the character of Newt was so brilliant. The powerful story is one of evolution and fighting for your rights, and I really enjoyed reading it. We did have quite a few deaths in this, and they were just so brutal and devastating. I was shocked by how quickly I had sort of latched onto these characters and were rooting for them, and so obviously deaths that came hit even harder because I was like, oh my god, I want the best for everybody here. I can't believe it. The style of writing kind of reminded me of the main character in Half Bad by Sally Green. If any of you have read that, it's that kind of writing, how they speak, if that makes sense. I don't know, I'm sure, is it phonetic? Yeah, phonetic kind of spelling. Overall, this was a great story. It had excellent character growth, harrowing scenes, so many moments where I was on the edge of my seat, and a really strong plot, so I definitely recommend that if you're interested. A couple of quotes on here as well. So this one's literally written how the character spoke, so I might not be able to read it back, like looking at it, like that doesn't make sense. So page 188. I've been living in fear the whole time anyways, even thinking that it's the maker's way. All them deaths, we takes it for granted, but it ain't right, is it? It ain't right to live in fear every day. True that. So I do have a little additional note, comparing to the 12, which is the book from this author that I read before. I did like the 12 better, but Bearmouth felt really unique, powerful, and had such strong themes. I do unfortunately have a DNF, and it was an R.L. Stine book. Well, R.L. Stine et al. This was Scream and Scream Again. It is a collection of 20 short stories that have one thing in common. They either start or end with a scream, and it's of course children's horror. So at 22% of the way through, I decided to DNF, and that was probably like, I think about 4 or 5 stories potentially, maybe a little bit less. Yeah, I really struggled to get into this one. After the first few stories, I was thinking that the narrator felt really robotic, and then I quickly became to realise that, hold on a minute, this voice is exactly the same all the way through, and although it's introducing the narrator for each story, this isn't them, this is one voice. Then I thought, have they cheaped out and decided to just do an AI voice? And then once I had that in my head, I was like, this is AI, this has got to be AI, and not very like convincingly so too. I was like, why do they sound all the same and so dry and robotic? And yeah, so that was frustrating. But aside from that, I wasn't all very like captivated by the stories that I did listen to anyway, so it was just, I might as well have stopped, so I did. I have one more book from the project that I've been working on, and that is Wicked Endeavours by Camilla Cole, and unfortunately I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. It wasn't quite what I was hoping for. Again, I'll discuss that more in the vlog that I was filming, but this is a romantasy following a vengeful teen who cons her way into an elite society of tyrannical witches. Sounds fantastic, right? But her warring feelings for 2 people, an enemy prince and her childhood friend, could ruin everything. So it is very much like love triangle, I guess you could say second chance romance vibes. But yeah, it just didn't live up to what I hoped it could be. I'll leave that there. I've got 3 more books to talk about. I've got Maelstrom by Kat Bethel. I have been on a little bit of a Kat Bethel kick recently. I've been reading through Book Sirens, the arcs of some of the A Monster's Prey books. So I thought, oh, whilst I've just finished one of those A Monster's Prey books, let me jump back to her backlist and see what else she has there. And not gonna lie, I was sucked in by the fact that this was a mermaid on the cover and it was like a mermaid shifter romance. So this one takes place apparently in the same universe as Dawn to Dusk and A Reaper's Voice, but the reading of the previous books is not required. I didn't know that until I came to the end of the book, and I haven't read either of those books, so I felt like I could still enjoy it and understand what I was reading. So Malene is suffering from a shattered bond from the 20-year abandonment of her mate. As soon as she tries to move on, he appears like nothing ever happened. I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I read it in 2 halves, but the 2 halves were quite a distance between each other. So the first half, I think I stopped because I was taken aback by the fact that the love interest, the mate that was gone for 20 years was a motherfucking megalodon. It wasn't another mermaid. I just assumed, oh, mermaid shifter romance, it's a mermaid. I didn't take into fact that the cover also has a shark on it. I just thought it was her like pet as she was in the ocean, you know. I didn't think anything romantic was happening, so that took me a little bit by surprise, and I think that's probably why I put it down for a little while. But when I picked it back up near the end of July, I breezed through the second half. It was still very addictive, not as addictive as the 2 books that I've read so far in the A Monster's Prey series, which is Echo and Chuckles, but still had that kind of addictive quality. It was fun, it was silly, and yeah, although it's not the same kind of quality as those books that I keep mentioning, it was still fun and entertaining, and I enjoyed it. And I would read more from that world, so to now know that it is set in the same universe as a couple of other books that this author has done, I'd be intrigued to jump in and see if there's any Easter eggs mentioning the characters here. Okay, last 2 books. I actually think I want to do a dedicated either TikTok review or something on here, but oh my god, The Alchemist by Paul Coelho. I'm not too sure if I'm pronouncing the surname incorrectly or not, but this was beautiful. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. Literary fiction, fable-esque kind of story, magical realism. It is stunning, and I sobbed, I cried. This combines magic, mysticism, wisdom and wonder into an inspiring tale of self-discovery. It's a modern classic following Santiago, an Andalusian shepherd boy who yearns to travel the world in search of his worldly treasure. This was fantastic. I think if I have to recommend any book, even maybe out of the majority of this year, try this one, pick it up. It's not overly long. It packs a punch though, it really, really does. I think, yeah, I'm gonna have to talk about this in some depth, all on its own, because this was just beautiful. So the last book I read was a manga that I read digitally, and it's a romance called My Happy Marriage Volume 1 by Rito Kunisaka. This is a Cinderella inspired sort of retelling, slow burn historical romance with a paranormal twist, and it's set in Meiji era Japan. Mistreated Mio is sent out of the home to marry a lord who she has heard is powerful, ruthless and cruel, and then we see what kind of befalls her as the story progresses. This was tender and gentle with a building yearning kind of quality between the 2 main characters that I think will escalate beautifully, so I'm looking forward to exploring that further in the next volume. Our female main character though was rather pathetic, and I feel really awful saying that, because when you read about her backstory, she is awfully treated, much like Cinderella. She's treated as a servant, so I do feel bad like saying that she's pathetic, but just some bits were just irritating. I do want to know more about the magic system. We got a little bit about the different kinds of magic that's in this world, and then right at the very end there was a little bit of a display of the magic being used, but it wasn't an awful lot, so I really hope that we get more of the actual in-depth magic usage, as well as the political intrigue between the families, like with the power, in volume 2, because I think I'd really enjoy learning more about that. There was a short story at the end which had a lovely bonus content, and it kind of added more like meaning to a scene that was in the bulk of the story. So I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 3.5 stars, and I will continue with at least the next couple of volumes. Again, much like with the other manga that I've read recently, just whatever I can get my hands on via the library, and if I like love it enough, then I'll probably think about finding my own copies or something, you know, or switching to an anime, that sort of thing. So that wraps up the rest of the books that I read during July. It turned into a meatier month than I was anticipating, but I'm not mad about it. Let me know what you guys have been reading, what you're hoping to read for August, and I shall catch you in another video soon. Bye.